Hey, good morning, everybody. It's October 18th, 2024. And 3 years ago, we uploaded this video, the possible timeline for Yeshua's return. This was May 27th, 2021. And this particular video was all about the timeline of Earth's history. And we found that we were in the purple part of the timeline. We noticed that each Earth age represented a color on the rainbow in order. Now I'm going to play a little bit of this video showing you the rainbow timeline, comparing it to each of the Earth ages, the biblical Earth ages, in order. Today, we're actually going to focus on the last color in the rainbow, which is the purple. Because a year after this video uploaded, a phenomenon began to happen in the skies. A phenomenon that was different than we had ever seen before. And they actually called it the purple rain. The purple rain, Aurora Borealis. Purple rain is a term used to describe both the Aurora Borealis, or northern lights, and the auroras of Mars. Now, what is this about? Well, we're going to break all this down today, because I think this is about the last Earth age in human history. Now, how did we know this before it started happening? Well, we follow what God tells us to look into, don't we? The purple rain. Now, don't run out and buy a Purple Rain album, because the enemy also knows that it's the last Earth age, the purple age. But he recognizes it in a much different way, doesn't he? In other words, Jesus, his Earth age of purple, is all about offering salvation to anyone who believes in him, repents, is baptized, and saved under the gospel, regardless of your bloodline. It's the mixing of red and blue under Jesus. But the enemy sees the purple age as something much different, as trying to preempt Jesus' plan and instead the enemy wants to mix the blue and red blood here in sin, in this world where the devil is king. He does not want Jesus King to come. And the reason why he wants to mix all the blood together is because it's a mass possession ritual that he's planning, so that there isn't any flesh left to go to heaven. Now, let's first listen to what I said 3 years ago about this last Earth age. And then we're going to see how the Aurora Borealis, the purple rain of the Aurora Borealis, fits into all this. Blue, baptism. And that leads us to the purple. And here's more evidence that this rainbow represents our human history, our timeline. Because what is the purple? Purple is red and blue mixed together. We've all done painting as children. And when you mix red and blue together, that becomes purple. And the book of Daniel says, in the last days they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but the two shall not cleave. He was talking about the blue bloods and the red bloods, the serpent bloodline and the men bloodline. And that's what, to me, seems as though we are in the purple. This is why you see the elite wearing purple all the time. This is what Prince was talking about, purple rain. That's what he was talking about. This earth age of this coming of the Son of Man. They believe in the purple. They want to mix the fallen ones with man so that you cannot be saved. They want as many people mixed. They want no flesh left, so that God will have to make a tough, hard choice. But what he doesn't realize is if you believe in the Son of God, his only begotten Son, you will be saved. Now, I don't know any of this for sure. These are just theories. But this study that we've done has changed over the years and developed and seems to be inspired. I always pray to God that I not be misled or mislead his people. And he knows my heart. So, many of us believe, of course, we're living in the last days. And this could be some proof that we actually are from a biblical perspective. So, sorry for the hiccup in the first part of the show of not being able to find that verse. Hopefully you can just let me. So, that was from 3 years ago, before this current Northern Light phenomenon that we are experiencing. Now, this seems to all fit together because if we are in the days of Noah, that is when God set a rainbow in the clouds to promise that he would never flood the earth again. So there's something to this, isn't there? There's something to this. Now, let's get into the Aurora Borealis and let me try to show you some more proof about this so that this all fits together for you. They tell us that we are in some kind of 10-year solar cycle. That's what they're telling us is the reason for this happening. Okay? But I'm 51 years old, and I've never had a memory of northern lights ever being this far south. I lived in Northern California and never, ever, as a child, looked up to the sky and saw northern lights or heard it on the news or anything. So this is something different. This isn't just some random 10-year cycle, is it? Yet, this is what they tell us. Now, here's one clue. You can find this graph pretty much anywhere. It shows you, since 2000, the different sunspot activity, which they tell us are supposed to correspond to the northern lights. And they are forecasting a peak in 2024, 2025 that is far beyond anything even since 2000. And to me, I believe this may even be underrated here. I think it's going to be so intense that the whole sky will turn purple at night. Wow. Now, I did some more research on this because I wanted to make sure that I caught all of this. Look at some of this imagery of the purple rain, the purple skies. And again, this isn't me stretching it. They call this the purple rain. They call the northern lights the purple rain. It's a scientific term. But how did Prince know? And we're going to talk a little bit about Prince today because I found some stuff that correlates this to him as well, outside of just the purple rain. So what is going on with this? Well, of course, the northern lights have an entire spectrum of colors, don't they? We were talking a little bit about this the other day. Complementary colors. And how is that possible? Colors opposite the color wheel, directly opposite, which shouldn't appear together like this, but yet they do. Here's one example. You're looking at complementary colors right here on your screen. These two colors, the orange and the greens and the pinkishes or the greens are opposite the color wheel. They're complements. Same goes for these colors here. So we were talking a little bit about this. But what causes the actual purple color? Because I wanted to know the actual purple color. And I researched this and I found out that the actual purple color is caused by the intensity of the storm. The blue and purple aurora, these colors are produced when solar particles collide with nitrogen in the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of 60 miles or less. So somewhere in the middle atmosphere, there's a bunch of nitrogen. And because of the intensity of the storm, this is where you get the purple colors. Now, in order to have a discussion about this last Earth age, the purple Earth age, we have to talk about Prince, who seemed to signal all of this long before his death. You ready for this? The Purple Rain album, released in 1984, 88 days after the 88th day of the year, on June 25th. So 88 days, March 29th, add another 88 days, June 25th. He was born in 58 and died 58 years after 1958, just before the 58th presidential quadrennial election that Trump would win in 2016. Do you see how all of this is connected? Now, Prince didn't make it to his 58th birthday. He was just shy by, I think I calculated, 6 weeks. 6 weeks shy of his 58th birthday. But it was in the 58th calendar year. Let me repeat those numbers, because these are not accidents. He was born in 1958. 58 years after 1958. Just before the 58th presidential quadrennial election that Trump would win in 2016. Now, there are more bizarre synchronicities, because everybody remembers Purple Rain, the movie. And there was a particular woman in the movie that played Prince's mother. Let's pull that up now. Here's the movie, Purple Rain. And it opened in 1984 on July 27th. The lady that played Prince's mother, let's go down to the crew here, the cast. Her name was Olga Karlatos. Ready for this? What I'm demonstrating to you is the matrix and how all this works. Okay? All of this fits together like a finely tuned puzzle. She is 77 years old, and she was born one day before the anniversary of Prince's death. She was born on April 20th. He died on the 21st. Years later, of course, but this is the pre-anniversary. She's 77 years old. That is a doubling twin number. Now, there are more character synchronicities from the film Purple Rain. Let's go back here. Everybody remembers Morris Day. Well, you ready for this? He is now 66 years old. Another twin doubling number. Remember this number 66? It's the Apollo number. And of course, there's Apollo, Apollonia, Kotero, which sounds a lot like Sotero, doesn't it? Here it is, right here. Now, she's 65, not quite 66 yet, but this is the Apollo connection. Now, there's one more thing. Because Purple Rain was 111 minutes long. And April 21st, the day that Prince would die, is the 111th day of the year. Now, are all these coincidences? I don't think so. But this final proof will put things in perspective for you. This is the forecast of what a typical storm from the Aurora Borealis looks like across the Earth. Take a good look at this. And next, I'm going to show you a video that we did from 8 years ago. A decode on the movie under the cherry moon and what we had to say about it. And this is going to blow your mind. And what I may do for the thumbnail of this video is do a side-by-side of this image of the Aurora Borealis and what it typically looks like next to what I'm going to show you next. I hope you're watching and paying attention. This is shocking. I just found this about 20 minutes ago to finish up the rest of my show notes. Take a look, you guys. This was me from 8 years ago. Watch.
Enter the stars. This is the symbol for Baal. This is the symbol for Baal. This is a letter. The letterhead from Under the Cherry Moon that Christopher Tracy signed his letters under. This is Christopher Tracy's letterhead, Prince's letterhead in the film Under the Cherry Moon. And this is the symbol of Baal. Baal worship, sacrifices. We'll be covering this Friday afternoon.
So that was from 8 years ago. And it appears as though what this was all about was the coming purple rain, the Aurora Borealis, the mixing of all of it together to cause chaos and confusion. You know, let me go back in the chat here. Everybody knows that Prince is the self-described androgynous human, both male and female. And we know that when you mix red and blue together, you get purple. And that is why the LGBTQ community uses lavenders and purples as their color. I heard something crazy yesterday. One of my friends told me that he thought that Biden, they skipped the Easter egg hunt this year. Is this true? Or is that just a rumor? And they called it National Trans Day instead. Now, of course, I don't celebrate Easter, but think of all of the pastel colors, the lavender color of the eggs. Think about that. Wow. So, something is not right, is it? The enemy knows that we're in the last Earth age. And this whole Trump thing, you know, where we get two Trumps, we get one Trump celebrating the Marriage Act at Mar-a-Lago with LGBTQ guests singing YMCA and getting on stage and saying that they have his full support. And then you have him flip-flopping and running trans ads during sports. So this is all about mixing everything together, chaos and confusion. You don't know which one you're going to get. So what are you guys' thoughts on this? Nuts, right? Speaking of nuts, tomorrow I just collected 10 pounds of hickory nuts. So that's on tomorrow's backup channel. The Honey Milk Ranch nuts were falling out of the tree. I picked one up, I brought it inside and cracked it open, and it tasted delicious. So I went around with a bag and collected as many as I could find, to the dismay of the squirrels, who had already peeled a lot of them and left them sitting in the ground waiting to bury them. So I basically ripped off the squirrels, getting a little revenge over here on these squirrels. But anyway, wow, is that not crazy about the Prince Matrix though? Now, there's a whole lot more to the Prince Matrix, of course. We didn't get into all the details, but the part of it that relates to the Northern Lights and the Aurora Borealis is what I presented to you today. So hopefully that came across clear and concise. Sunday, we'll be back here with Between the Headlines. There's a lot of headlines to cover. Got a bunch of tabs already pulled up for you guys. Wow, is this nuts or what? All right, I'm in the chat, you guys. Now, that was, of course, a model of the Earth that's shaped like a globe. But, if you take it and you were to lay that on a flat plane, it would look exactly the same. So let's not get hung up on arguing about the shape of the Earth, because then you miss the point, right? Some people believe it's round, some people believe it's flat. In this case, the image would be exactly the same. But wow, unbelievable. Now, what I will say is that Baal, the symbol of Baal, that's a Baal, right? So that maybe is the deception and why it makes that pattern. Unbelievable. So I'll put links to those old videos that we did so you could see for yourself if you want to delve deeper into the rainbow timeline, because there's a whole rest of the rainbow that we covered in that video. We covered the colors in order and overlaid biblical history. And we found all these different clues about how it all fit together. So, all right, you guys. You guys have any questions? I should design a game called Angry Squirrels where we go around stealing their nuts. Yeah, and I'm with my pellet gun. Yeah, that'd be a great game. Instead of duck hunt, it would be squirrel hunt. And then, yeah. And then they're like attacking me and warning the deer. And like I'm trying to hunt. That'd be an amazing game. It'd be hilarious. And like basically it's you against the entire forest. Crows come in and steal all the corn. I wish I was a game designer because I'd actually be able to figure that out. All right. So is all this making sense to you guys? The whole lavender matrix that we talked about as well. Do you see now how that fits into this? Lavender AI, lavender artificial intelligence. Now I can just imagine that Trump's vice presidential pick, Vance, which Vance has the word lavender in it, or Vance, VAN, lavender. And that's all connected with Peter Thiel, right? And so all of this is a matrix. And this is all about seek and destroy artificial intelligence that's weaponized against a population to find the perpetrators, regardless of who they are. And then it takes into account collateral damage, and then it launches weapons against them. Lavender is Israel's artificial intelligence to find the quote-unquote terrorists. Now, I can only imagine that the people on the right think that Vance is a good pick because of his connections to this artificial intelligence Terminator program, right? Lavender. I can imagine that Trump supporters actually think this is a great idea. Why? Because Trump is now saying he's going to use the military to go after the left. Well, that's the bait. The bait is that we think, or the people on the right think, that he's actually going to do something and use this technology to go after the left and finally weed out left-wing extremism in America. Do you really, really take him at his word that that's what he's going to do? I don't. Because if he wanted to do that, he could have started at the top with Bill and Hillary Clinton and everybody else. But he didn't. So what makes us think he's going to do that now? All he's doing is opening the door to them using this technology against all American citizens. Namely, guess what they're bringing up now? The white right extremism. They're calling them domestic terrorists. And now they're going after anybody who's putting together a militia of any kind for any reason. And that's what we're going to cover on Sunday. Some breaking headline stories about this new thing that they're creating. This profile of a prepper, profile of someone who has weapons, who says things that are negative against the government, who trains for the end times. They're calling all that extremism now. And these will be the people that they go after with these kinds of artificial intelligence technologies. Now, we were saying years ago, weren't we? Because, there was a time on YouTube where a lot of channels, started not liking the rhetoric. Okay. The rhetoric is, it's, exactly what I'm talking about. Get prepared. We can fight. We can fight. This is what they were saying. Right. And I remember even back then, about 6 or 7 years ago, telling people, you guys, they have technology to root out people. This is an information battle. You're not going to be able to amass armies and, get groups together and militias to do anything. You might be able to protect your own stuff with a militia from other people, but not the military arm of the world. It's just simply not going to happen. They have heat detection. They can fly a helicopter over a 10-mile section and find anything with a pulse. And there's nothing you can do. They can alleviate threats before they even happen. So all that rhetoric does, if you're online spouting that stuff, is going to put you on a list and get you targeted. And this is where I wonder if, some of these people that they're saying are doing these things, they're showing pictures of these people. I wonder if it's our own government not doing this just to hype it up. I mean, who does that? Who goes online and goes, join my militia, we're going to fight the government? Who does that? Who would do that? They would know. They wouldn't do it that way. They would do it undercover, wouldn't they? They wouldn't put anything online. But yet, they show us these people who, have social media sites and all this. To me, that's all government people. So that they can create a profile so that when someone finds out about a group of people just preparing for the last days, they get told on, and then they find that this group and they alleviate them or annihilate them. You see the problem here? So during that time in YouTube, I kind of separated myself from the groups that were in the channels that were talking about doing something all the time in terms of some kind of violence, because I don't believe in violence and I don't want to be lumped in with that. There's enough opportunity to continue to wake people up that we haven't even tapped into yet. And you all know what I'm talking about. We've been at this for 12 years. And what we're fighting against isn't force. We're fighting against people being asleep. We're fighting against algorithms that control information and relevancy. That's what we're fighting against. You can't solve this problem with force. It doesn't work that way. Yes, protect your stuff, protect your family. But if you think you're going to organize some kind of event, you're sadly mistaken. Not in 2024, not even in 2016, not even in 2010. They already had the technology to find people. This is about the mind. Now, we all know that God's plan is much different than the plan that some people think is going to happen. Some people want to fix this world. It ain't going to get fixed according to the Bible. But that doesn't mean that we can't help wake people up so that they don't become part of the problem, so that they're not siding with the enemy without even knowing it, without even realizing it. They're helping the enemy's plans. So that fight never ends, right? That fight never ends. We have to continue to do that because that is working for the kingdom, winning souls to Christ. So what would a Christ-like end times person be like? Well, let's go down the list. This is just off the top of my head. First of all, you're not going to amass an army, okay? You're not going to do that. You can have small groups of people whose sole intents and purposes is to live by God and also to protect each other in case outside threats come in terms of other people, desperate, demonically possessed people coming in, trying to steal your stuff and wage war on your family, because that will happen in the end times. As things get worse, there's going to be a lot of lawlessness, people harming and stealing stuff. And you don't want to have to go through that. And God doesn't want you to have to go through that either. But with a little bit of preparation and being around people that are like yourself, you won't have to worry about that. Not like the people in the inner cities anyway. That's the first thing you could do. Second thing you can do is divest yourself from the system. I was just talking to my friend yesterday. He's spending tens of thousands of dollars in insurance for his properties. It's like, wow, what? Yes, people are insurance poor now. Tens of thousands of dollars for insurance. And if you own multiple properties, that's just what it costs now. If they raise my house insurance, I will just delete it. I don't need house insurance. I'll just be careful. I'll clear the land around my house. And I know that they have weather warfare, and I get all that. I understand that, you guys. But I chose a specific property on the high ground that is self-sufficient. It's a compound, essentially, impervious to most weather events. There's no tornadoes. There's a lot of things that just never happen here. Now, I know everyone can't do that, but I'm trying to give you a guideline for what it would look like for an end times Christian. Divest yourself from this economy in any way, shape, or form possible. Mortgages will be unsustainable in the last days. Consistent jobs where you can consistently make an income will be more and more scarce. You can't depend on these things. So don't pay into things like life insurance that you can't maintain because you're just going to throw your money away. Don't be insurance poor. If you own multiple properties, start divesting that stuff. Get rid of it because all it's doing is weighing you down with taxes and insurance. That's what an end times Christian would look like. Stay close to God. Pray every day that for his kingdom to come, for protection, and so that you don't have to go through too many trials, and that you have the ability, possibly, if you're in a good position, to help others. That's what we're supposed to look like in the last days. But what I'm seeing in these last days are Christians in a completely different mindset. You either have the extreme ones who thinks they're going to overthrow an election. That's not happening in America, you guys. They'll give you the illusion that it's about to happen, but it ain't happening. The people at the top control the money. And unfortunately, we live in a world where if you pay someone $250,000 a year, they're going to work for you. And they will do atrocities that you couldn't even imagine. So as long as they control the money and the payroll, there isn't going to be some segment of society who just wants to do the right thing if they can't support themselves and feed their families. That's just the truth. And we all know it, but sometimes we forget. Sometimes we get amped up and pumped up, and we like to hear that somebody wants to fight and take over a bunch of people and take the country back. Sometimes we want to hear that, but is it practical? No. And the Bible tells us it's not practical. There are many verses in the Bible that tell us what the end times are going to look like. And it never says that God's people are going to get back power and control. It just doesn't say that. What it does say is that God will protect his people who listen to him and serve him. The Bible also says that people who seek after riches will stab themselves all over their body with many pains. And it says that because it's exactly what happens. You see people struggling to make it, right? You see people struggling to be like Trump, or hard work and I'm going to be rich. I see it all the time on some of the channels that I watch. You know, these YouTubers, you know, they start making a little bit of money on YouTube and they go out and they're buying boats and moving into bigger houses, and then hard times hit and they got to sell it all at half the price that they bought it at. So how far ahead did they really get? Would it have been better to have something simple and stay simple? Right? Maybe use some of that money to help other people more. But for some reason, we live in America where people care about what car they drive, what clothes they wear, where they live. That's on the top of most Christian Americans' minds still, even in these last days. And I'm not trying to deflate anyone's ego. I'm trying to be realistic about where we are in the timeline. And a lot of you need to hear this discussion, okay? A lot of you need to hear it. What else can you do as a last days Christian? Well, none of us should be in debt to any degree where they can come and take your stuff because you don't pay your debts. Debts in the last days are just going to be one more hook in you to steer you and to make you do what the enemy wants you to do. He'll use that debt hanging over your head to put you in a state of owing something to somebody. We all know what that feels like. Spent the majority of the first part of my life in debt. So this is real. What else do you want to do? Have a reliable car. New cars are probably not relevant right now in these last days because it's a waste of money. It's about being a good steward about the things that we're blessed with and the things that we have. That's what it's about, you guys. And weathering the storm of the last days. You don't want any hooks in you when the enemy comes through with all this crazy change and all this chaos. Because the more hooks he has in you, the more he's going to drag you down and bend your will to his will instead of the will of the Most High. Anyway, I love each and every one of you. I'll be back tomorrow with, on the backup channel, Honey Milk Ranch going mocker nuts. Also, I'm going to give you a deer blind tour inside my deer blind, and we're going to do some tree identification. I'm going to show you how to find your nut trees on your property, because now's the time. The nuts are falling off the tree. I know that Cheryl showed me some pictures of her nuts that she collected on her property, and they're the same nuts that I have. So I was like, wow, we've got the same trees. So we were talking a little bit yesterday about how to, collect those. I've got mine in the freezer right now because it actually kills any like worms or anything that might be in there. So I got them in the freezer for 24 hours. I'm going to pull them out and I'm going to be cracking some nuts. All right, you guys, I love each and every one of you, and I will see you guys tomorrow and on Sunday. Much love.